All right, we got to 20 million users in a month with no advertising budget.
Whoa.
And that's because people like what we've built and people tell their friends to use it, or they do podcasts and they talk about it, And so like, this is entirely a word of mouth type success. And so yes, every single person, when you make that choice to switch, you are absolutely helping. So I do really want to emphasize that.
So hello and welcome to another episode of Chatter. Today, I'm talking to Jeremy Kauffman, who is the CEO and founder of LBRY, which is also transitioning into the online platform Odysee. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here with you, Josh. And I hope that at least at some point in the show, when people learn more about what we've been building, that people start listening to this show on Odysee, which has really become the successor to YouTube.
I couldn't agree more, actually. I have just, like, as of last week, signed up. I was looking for a different platform than YouTube for quite a while. And now it's more a case of like, we're going to try and transition more of like the promotion all towards Odysee, because you guys don't seem as censorship happy, which is awesome.
Yeah, we think our policies are way better than YouTube. YouTube has really turned its back on what made it great. It's turned it back on the kind of independent content creator and become much more focused on the kind of corporate content. And they're openly saying this. They're talking about how they're boosting quote authoritative sources and lowering in the results people who are independent creators. So YouTube's become much more this place for, that you want to watch Stephen Colbert clips or Gordon Ramsay clips or this kind of thing, you go to YouTube. But if you want to find the kinds of content that you would have found on YouTube, a decade ago or even 5 years ago, you can't really find that kind of thing on YouTube anymore. And part of what makes Odysee so great as a solution is it is built on top of this technology called LBRY, LBRY, which is this blockchain-based protocol. It's all open source, and we like to say that it does to publishing what Bitcoin does to money. And we can drill into all of that, but I will say, if you don't care, there's some really interesting tech here. If you don't care about the tech, Odysee.com is the easiest way to use it. It's just a better YouTube, but part of the reason that it's better gets into some of this tech behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't honestly know how YouTube ended up in this position where they're considered just like the gold standard of like a video sharing platform. That doesn't seem like an idea that should have such a monopoly on it. How do you think they ended up in this position where they are just like, it's just like YouTube? And that's the style of video. We describe it as the career. It's become like the place for video content.
I think it's something that happens fairly commonly with these Silicon Valley companies. I think it's typically actually an explicit plan where basically their goal is to corner a market, providing a service where they're losing money, essentially providing a service that's as good as possible, with this expectation that once they've cornered a market, they can sort of start to turn the screws. And I think we've seen that in terms of how they've treated a lot of their creators, as well as how they're treating their users. I mean, to me, it's either they regard what they're doing as like just pure profit maximizing. It's also possible that there's, there's an ideological bent to the people who work at YouTube. I think that's possible as well. But I think a lot of it's just, they feel that they're the, 800-pound gorilla. You're kind of stuck with them, and they don't have to care about you as much as maybe they did in the past.
So they're in that position, and now they don't have to pander anymore. So why don't we go back a little bit before we start getting into all the specifics? Like, what is LBRY? Like, why was it founded? Why did you guys see that there was a reason to even try and challenge YouTube's monopoly? And where did it all come from?
So LBRY is an open source blockchain-based publishing protocol. That's a complicated sentence. Another way that we put it is it does to publishing what Bitcoin does to money. And I can get into what that specifically means from a technical sense if you want to. But what's most important is probably to understand the properties. And what that means is you have a level of control that's unprecedented compared to alternatives. So on the LBRY system, you can truly own your channel. It can't be taken away from you. The network is decentralized. So there's not one point of failure. There's not one point of control. And it's all open source. So if we ever become the evil bad guy, which would involve, brainworms taking over me or something like that, but let's pretend it happens, there's this ability for the community or for anyone in the world to pick it up and build a better version. So we've built all this in a way where we've almost handcuffed ourselves. We've kind of designed the system so that even in that scenario where imagine that it was the traditional sort of Silicon Valley startup play of like corner the market and turn the screws, that can't happen here because you're not trapped. That the way that you're sort of locked in to serve to the major social media services is literally not possible in this case. It actually turns it almost a little bit more into something like email. No, that's not the sexiest comparison, but in the sense that you can use a different client than I can use, and we're still able to interoperate. There's not that lock-in into you can only, imagine if email only worked via Gmail, it would be a much different system than the way that email works currently. And so we've kind of done that with video publishing, where Odysee is the best, easiest way to use it, but you're not locked into Odysee. You can use a decentralized desktop client. There's alternate clients that focus on other different types of content. And there's an ability to sort of make different versions of it if people desire.
Well, I mean, the decentralized part is something that a lot of people have been talking about for quite a while in order to like try and take the power out of the hands of just this handful of Silicon Valley billionaires who seem to just think that they are, the arbiters of what we can see and what we as the people, deserve or should see. Thankfully we have people looking out for us like that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's because you'll see these people who want the sites to effectively perform more censorship. And I always wonder, like, these people don't trust Mark Zuckerberg in like any other context, right? We all watched the movie where he's like, this explicitly evil figure who's been like, calculating how to take advantage of all of us. And then like people want to turn over control over what they get to see to that person. Now, I think that's a minority, by the way. I want to say that I don't think most people want to do that. I think if you ask most people, who would you rather make choices for you about what you get to watch? Almost everyone says, well, I would like to decide. I don't want someone else to decide for me. And LBRY is definitely built with that principle in mind, that you, the publisher and the user, ought to be able to make the choices, and the ability for this middleman to control things is kind of diminished, which also reduces the leverage that governments and advertisers and all of these people can even put on us, because we don't have the same control that these other companies have. And that's also why we say that what we built is the successor to YouTube rather than just an alternative. So it's not just there. While there is this website that's very easy to use, I want to continue to emphasize that Odysee.com, very easy to use. It's not just a clone. It's not just an alternative. It's something that's genuinely different and has the ability to build something better than what came before.
So why don't we get a little bit more into like the technical details here of what it consists of. So when you say, for a layman coming at this, for someone who's like fairly new to say blockchain or like decentralized networks, do you want to give us like an understanding of what you mean when you say it's like what it's doing, what publishing did, what would you say? Did the publishing what Bitcoin did to currency or money?
Yeah, absolutely. Although I want to continue to emphasize that at this point, I'm like now describing how the car works, and you don't need to know how your car works to get in and drive and experience the benefits of a car, right? So we have a very, very easy way to use it. You don't have to understand everything that I'm about to say, but to explain how it works, at the sort of lowest, most level of the LBRY network is a public blockchain. LBRY is its own blockchain. It's not built on top of Ethereum or Bitcoin or something like that. So it's a public blockchain. That public blockchain contains, in addition to account balances, the way that Bitcoin would, it contains an identity system. So you can create handles. Those handles can publish content, and those content records, but not the content itself, are also recorded on that blockchain. So we have this system that this blockchain is owned by no one, just like no one owns the Bitcoin blockchain. The blockchain is not owned by us, but anyone can interact with the blockchain, and the blockchain becomes this register of digital content that exists. It includes all of the metadata. So that's things like the title, who published it, the description, all these other tags, things like this. Included in that metadata is a pointer to a peer-to-peer network, similar to kind of similar to BitTorrent, if your audience would be familiar with that. But LBRY is not the same type of content. On LBRY, you're going to find hundreds of thousands, millions maybe now of creators that are interested in this new kind of economy that we've built on the LBRY network. And so that's sort of the succinct definition of the blockchain, is that you've got this public blockchain, which contains all of the records about what's happening. And because it's a public blockchain, it has the same properties as Bitcoin, where your cryptocurrency wallet contains all of your keys to your channel, everything that you've published, all of the earnings that you've made on the network. It includes, in our case, all of your settings, all of the other channels that you're following. All of that's included in your cryptocurrency wallet. So that's something that you can take with you. You can use the local decentralized client that we don't have control over. You could port that into some other service that someone else has built. And that's part of why you're not locked into using just one way to interact with the network. But again, all that's complicated. Odysee.com is the super easy way to use it. And you don't have to understand anything I said. A lot of people come on and use Odysee and they don't even realize they're interacting with the blockchain. So if you have this, one of the things that we've really focused on is a lot of blockchain products are very complex. They feel hard to use. That is not the case with what we've built here.
So the reason that I found Odysee and LBRY as a company, while I was sort of looking into alternatives to YouTube, or sorry, successors to YouTube, that I found the court case, or the court filing that you're sort of taking to the SEC over their new regulations or their proposed regulations of cryptocurrencies. Do you want to explain to people what that case is and why you've decided to fight this?
Yeah, well, we've decided to fight it because we think what the SEC has done is very unfair. It's very inequitable. There's no allegation of any victim or any kind of fraud or anything like that in terms of what the SEC is alleging. And I also want to emphasize, I'll talk about the case, but I also want to emphasize that the case is simply against us as a company. They're not attempting to shut the network down. In fact, the way that LBRY is designed, they can't shut the network down. So there's no risk to anyone's cryptocurrency or anyone's content. There's not even a risk to the future work on the platform. There's essentially the risk is to the finances of our company, the cryptocurrency that my company holds, as well as to, I think the biggest risk is to cryptocurrency in the United States generally. So the SEC is, in my opinion, and the opinion of many other people, engaging in essentially a suppression program against cryptocurrencies. They don't like cryptocurrencies. Their preference would be that cryptocurrencies are not used and developed in the United States. And under the standard they're advancing here, basically any cryptocurrency technology that continues to be developed would be a security. So they're saying that if you develop the technology and you hold some of the token, the technology is not, quote, finished. And this is a key part of what makes the token a security. Now, I asked the SEC, can you name a finished technology? They didn't answer that question when we were having our interview. So I think this is a really disastrous case where there's no victim. No one went to the SEC and said something was done wrong. People have bought the tokens to use them on the LBRY network, and the SEC is basically trying to shut down cryptocurrency in the U.S. using this case as a way to do that.
One of the things that really struck me when I was reading through some of the stuff and watching a few videos on this before we did the interview was that they haven't actually informed you of any way in which you can not be breaking the law under their definitions, that they haven't actually informed you of any way in which you can conduct your business without without you basically committing what they're calling as like illegal practices or fraud or however they're going to define it.
Well, I want to say not fraud, because they're not alleging that we've misrepresented anything. Again, all of their evidence in the case is materials that we've made publicly available. In fact, I think that's a big part of why they're going after us, is like simply because they're really lazy. There are, like, I'm for generally free exchange of things, so I don't want to like point fingers at certain companies specifically. But there are companies that are doing way worse things than what we're alleged to have done, and they simply try more to hide it. Whereas we said, here's the spreadsheet of everything that we've done, and then the SEC, downloads that and says, this is the evidence we found that you're breaking the law. And it's like, well, like there are companies that are doing, there's hundreds and hundreds of companies, probably thousands of companies who have done what LBRY has done, but few are as transparent as we've been, and we think we are being punished for that transparency. And it's been such a Kafkaesque scenario where they say, go consult with lawyers and they'll tell you how to understand the law. Well, I've spent $1 million consulting with lawyers. Like I've had some very expensive memos crafted that I then follow, and the SEC says, well, that's not correct. And so like we start giving the SEC memos, and we're saying, all right, well, like here, they say you can go to this other agency, and if you write up rules to this agency, they'll tell you if it's okay. And then that agency, this other arm of the agency, sorry, it's all the SEC. They say, oh, well, we can't tell you how to do it because you're currently under investigation. And then you go to the investigation branch and they say, well, while you're, we can't, you have to go to this other group to get clearance. And then, so the entire thing is designed that you can't get any actual answer. We started writing our own rules. We're like, well, what if we do this? They won't, would that be okay? They won't comment. So we're not even asking for them. The rules are so unclear. We're dealing with a 100-year-old law that's being applied to this technology that they were not conceived of, that was not conceived of in any way. And the SEC is interpreting this very unclear law in an incredibly aggressive manner. And it is weird, I think, that they're going after us. You can see pretty much every crypto lawyer will tell you the same thing, that it's like, why are they going after LBRY? It doesn't make any sense. And I do think it's possible that there's a sort of like regulatory capture angle at play here, where, the SEC seems like, you saw this with GameStop, you saw this with other things, you see Elon Musk getting into it with the SEC. Like, it doesn't seem that they're necessarily protecting people, and they may just be, protecting other powerful interests, protecting Wall Street, protecting big tech.
Do you think crypto poses such a challenge to like the established order that it would provoke that kind of response?
Yes, yes, yeah. I do. I think blockchain is the most empowering technology for sort of people against the entrenched sort of power sources in a generation. Honestly, since the internet, I think the internet was something that very much disrupted the establishment and the ability for a smaller group. And I'm not alleging, I want to be clear, like I'm not really alleging any sort of like specific conspiracies. I don't think that there's this small group of people that's like literally picking up the phone and saying, do this. I think that it's more that there's like this web of like sort of local incentives that people respond to that sort of perpetuates a status quo, because that's how you advance up certain hierarchies or certain incentives presented by the existing system. And the sort of existing system is harmful in a lot of ways to people who want to be a little bit alternative, who want to think for themselves, who want to make decisions for themselves, who want to have more control over their lives. These are frequently the people who are getting sort of trampled by the system. And I think that blockchain really reduces the ability, not just LBRY, but all blockchain reduces the ability to exert as much control. I mean, you could look at the controls over the financial system, in my opinion, have become one of the most illiberal aspects of society in America, where you have a couple of payment companies, and those payment companies regularly cease services for political reasons. You've got two credit card companies, and if they don't like you, you're effectively out of business. And so those became a major source of political control in America, where it's something like, oh, you're selling firearms, or you're selling marijuana paraphernalia, or like anything that the establishment doesn't like, and you get shut down by the credit card companies, and then you can't do business. The degree of scrutiny that goes into the financial transactions that private individuals are making, this is all enabled by the current financial system. And I think that blockchain really, also, of course, I mean, you've got the Federal Reserve, printing an incredible amount of money, prices of everything going up, and people are looking for a place to put their money in the case of like something like Bitcoin. And so I do think, even Peter Thiel said the other day that he thinks, Bitcoin is a threat to American financial hegemony. So I think that absolutely, yeah, blockchain's a real deal, and it's very important for the future.
I mean, like just this morning, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I think Dogecoin as well, all hit their all-time high.
Yeah.
So it's not like these. It doesn't seem that the major institutional investors even are being discouraged by this proposal to regulate crypto in this way, which kind of gives me some sort of hope.
Yeah, I would like, so I'm not, I would encourage you only to buy the LBRY tokens that you can use it on the network, and no, I mean, that's not a joke. I mean, I think, I will say, I think it's great that people are able to make money by kind of seeing this future coming. I think it's great that people are rewarded for their ability to do that. I think that I'm much more into blockchain and cryptocurrency because of the empowerment angle than the, let's get rich angle. Because I don't think, there is that sort of like Warren Buffett critique of cryptocurrency that, it's not actually, generating anything. Cryptocurrency is not an equity in the traditional sense, where, with an equity, you're entitled to some portion of return from that company's productive activity. Like the cryptocurrency itself is not doing anything. I'm excited about cryptocurrencies much more because of what it lets us build. It lets us build technologies like LBRY with different properties. It lets us take back financial control from these small number of banks and from the government. And so I'm excited about it for those reasons. Hey, if I get rich off of it, great, but I think I'm much more excited about the sort of implications of some of the properties than just like 10xing or whatever.
So like you've mentioned a few times, like you're encouraging people to want to buy the tokens. Like why should they do that? Like what do they do on your platform for people who aren't aware?
The tokens let you create that identity. They let you publish. So you use a small amount of the token to create an identity. You use a small amount of the token when you publish. And then you can also use the token to pay for content, to tip creators that you like. And there's also this system, this sort of like trust and boosting system where people can sort of allocate their tokens to say that this content is really good, or I really like this. And that can help that content perform better or be more discoverable in the network.
So it's like putting the monetization of YouTube back in the hands of the people who can sort of dish it out instead of like the advertisers that they want to use.
Yes, very much. That's very much what we're doing. And that's a big part of why people come on as well. YouTube is taking 50% of every dollar that's made on the platform. They're taking a huge cut of the money. And so the idea to have a system where you can earn way higher percentage and the money settles immediately, that's very appealing to people. It's not just about the censorship.
So do you think YouTube are aware that there are, people coming up like yourselves attempting to replace them as like the go-to video platform?
I think I can tell you they're absolutely aware of us. I have emails indicating as such. And I think at this point, it's pretty clear that we're the biggest threat to YouTube. I think Google knows that that's true. And I think they've begun acting in a way that that's true. But I don't know what they do to fix it, because it's not this, sometimes you have this upstart competitor and the sort of established competitor has the ability to just be like, oh, we'll just do what the upstart's doing. They figured out a better way to do it. We'll just copy it. In our case, the thing that we're doing that's different is fundamentally surrendering the amount of control that these companies traditionally have. And I don't think it's really possible for them to copy that. I also don't see, in terms of Google's culture, the the culture being the same that it was 10 years ago, and I think that was clear with things like the Damore firing and other things where, the safe space that you want to have when you're creating cutting edge technology is a safe space for people to have weird and different ideas, for people to be okay disagreeing. If you are enforcing some kind of like hegemony of thought where only these narrow things are allowed, or like only people of one political persuasion are getting hired, I don't think that you're going to create extremely like creative, cutting edge type technological solutions. And I think it's clear that YouTube in particular has probably become the most political part of Google, where they're censoring, presidents and governors and Senate testimony and all kinds of things in this way that's very, very political. And I think that that's driven not just by the CEO, but basically by the fact that their staff is incredibly political at this point. And I just don't see that being ever being a product that's liked by all people. It's going to be a product that's liked by, maybe a third of the country.
I guess that becomes the issue. But one of the things that I was like thinking about last night while I was thinking about how people could attempt to subsume Facebook or replace Facebook, and YouTube. And one of the things that I was thinking about was the fact that it was, maybe this isn't the case anymore, but the thing that had been explained to me was that YouTube lost money permanently, essentially, and that Google, the reason that it was able to become what it was is as you kind of touched on earlier, that it was loss making, and they've attempted to corner the market, and Google was basically able to prop it up in order for them to grow to the size they are. And why is your model more viable than YouTube's, in that like you don't need a Google to prop you up? While do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah. So, well, one, I'll say that YouTube hasn't been losing money for years. That was true at one point. One aspect is simply that the costs of delivery and all of this stuff have come down a tremendous amount. But probably an even bigger aspect is the blockchain and the peer-to-peer aspect of what we're building. So the fact that the peer-to-peer aspect reduces infrastructure costs, and the blockchain aspect really creates a very empowered community. We have a Discord chat with 40,000 people in it. So much of the work that there are 15 people who were actually employed by the company. There are 200 people who contributed code in the last year. There are hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people, who have made a meme and attempted to spread the message. And so it's something where like it's created something that's almost more of a movement and not just a company. And I think that that's a big part of why we'll succeed.
One of the things that made YouTube great was the independent nature of the creators, and it has really become like more corporatized again, as you mentioned earlier. When I search videos for stuff, like there's some protests going on in the UK at the moment about a policing bill, and there's a couple of things kicking off in my home city in Belfast, just with things about Brexit sort of vaguely, and the borders. And yeah, when I tried to like search for footage of people like on the street to try and get like an idea of what's going on. And if I search for like the footage, it just comes up with all of these institutional, like it's our major TV stations, our major like newspapers or media outlets, and that's all you find.
Yeah, there's been this really uncomfortable fusion, in my opinion, between big tech and government that I think should concern a lot of people. That YouTube has explicitly said multiple times. Susan just said this to the World Economic Forum just the other day about how they're boosting authoritative sources and pushing down the kind of independent results, exactly like you're talking about. Anyone who goes onto the Odysee.com homepage or just clicks around in the categories will probably see creators that they used to know. And they're like, oh, what happened to him? I stopped seeing his videos. And it's because, YouTube decided that it didn't want to show them anymore. YouTube has literally numerical scores that are manually assigned to channels. That's basically like boost this channel in the results or lower this channel in the results, and those scores are assigned by human beings. So they absolutely had their thumb on the scales. I'll give a particularly egregious example. Have you come across the Ford Fisher case?
Oh, yeah. Ford Fisher, was he the guy who had footage from inside the Capitol on January 6th?
Yeah, this case is unreal. So Ford Fisher went to the Capitol riots on January 6th and filmed what was happening. Ford provides like no commentary. You know, he's describing what's happening. He's like, he tries to be as politically neutral as a reporter can be. He's like, just the facts, like this is what's happening. This man is now, beating on this window. It's like very, it's
you remember when
factual.
You remember when that was journalism?
Yes. I mean, it is like, he would, there's you can debate around the edges of like what is journalism. Like there's no debate that what Ford is doing is journalism. And YouTube has removed Ford's footage. YouTube's policy is this footage cannot be restored unless you contextualize it. Okay. So in other words, the live footage of these events cannot be allowed to stand for itself. The only way you're allowed to upload it is if you spin it. You're not allowed to not spin it. And that's like absolutely unreal. This footage was used in the Trump impeachment hearings, by the way. So it's of like historical and political significance that people be able to access it. It was used by New York Times and CNN. And so, but YouTube is saying the video itself is not allowed up. And this has been going on for months. So this isn't like, oh, they made a mistake or the algorithms made a mistake. Like YouTube has been very explicit in this case that the video is just not going to be allowed up. And I mean, they did it again with the DeSantis video just the other day, where there's this video of Ron DeSantis. I mean, this one's like a little bit more political, but it's a governor of Florida who's having a private conversation with someone, and they're saying you're not allowed. And it's like, dude, like I love it for my company's sake, but I honestly don't get it from a business perspective. It's like, you can disagree with this person. You can think that he's wrong. I'm not saying I agree with him, but it's like, clearly he's like getting elected in the state of Florida. Like a lot of people agree with him to say that he's not allowed to use your platform. It just seems like terrible from a business perspective to be alienating, half your audience or more than half your audience, because I've got to imagine, even if you think DeSantis is wrong, there's a lot of people out there who should be uncomfortable with a tech company, censoring elected officials.
Sometimes I wonder about this, because I'm thinking that Google is they're like I don't know how much they're worth, tens of billions of dollars at least. And they've clearly become incredibly successful in a lot of the avenues down which they've gone. And yet they seem to be displaying like zero business acumen here. No, but seriously, like they
I agree with you.
Intent on removing like huge creators, like they seem intent on driving out like Steven Crowder. He's like 5.3 million viewers. Tim Pool is like close to 1 million. They've already driven out Joe Rogan, although he just says it was because Spotify offered him a better deal. But I think he was looking for somewhere to jump to. Like they seem to be making these really poor decisions. Like what's going on?
But Spotify removed all the Rogan videos too.
Yeah,
more than and it wasn't like there's a thing like, oh, they're coming back. Like no, there's 30 episodes missing right now.
I think it's up to 42.
Okay, there you go. You got the current number, so you're better at my job than I am. I seriously like it does. Sometimes I feel like I'm in like a Pod People movie where I'm like, how's no one else see like what's going on here? Like, how's this not disturbing to more people? And I mean, I think the answer is it is disturbing to a lot of people. It's difficult for me to understand exactly why they're doing it, because I want to have the same bias that you do. I don't think they're dumb. Like, and I don't think that, I do think that Google is like generally a well-run company that's made billions of dollars. Like, so to me, the two most likely scenarios are that, like, one is that this is profit maximizing. There is in America, there has been this like large company and establishment fusion where like it is plausible to me that the government is putting some sort of pressure on them to take certain actions, or not even the government, again, in this grand conspiracy sense, but like local officials who have their own biases, so they do feel that maybe they do feel that this is profit maximizing. Or the other possibility is that the CEOs don't want to do this. The executives don't necessarily want to do this, but if 90% of your employees want something, like you can't necessarily dictate otherwise. You know, so if the sort of general populace at these companies wants them to take it, it may be that they feel that it's more pragmatic to sort of do what their employees want, because otherwise they risk, you know, sort of a revolt among the people working there. I think that's one possible scenario.
Do you get a sense of the reasons that people are deciding to leave YouTube to move to Odysee, either as like a transitional sort of move or just altogether just forget YouTube? Like, do you get a sense of like what the main reasons for people leaving are? Is it that they feel your, you know, platform is better? Do they like the way the tokens work? Is it the censorship that's driving people away from YouTube? Like, do you have an understanding of that?
I'll talk about some of them. It's a mix. There's a variety. I will say before I get into some of the reasons that we have this really great tool on Odysee where it will copy your entire YouTube channel over, both historically, and it will copy it on an ongoing basis. And it's literally, you check one box. It is so easy to do. And so if you are a YouTube creator and you're hearing this interview and you're curious about what we're doing, there's a way to get started that's like very little effort. And so it's sort of a heads you win, tails nothing happens scenario, which is a good kind of bet to look for in your life generally. And I will say that's part of why people come on. So part of it is, well, people are curious and we've made it really easy. It's really easy to sign up and get started. It's really easy to try it. People come on because you can earn a little bit of cryptocurrency just for using the website, just for sort of checking it out. And so people like that. People like the idea of having more control, even if you're not being censored. It's like, you know, if you're having a conversation with your friend, you know, do you want some like hall monitor there, you know, standing over you? There's this sort of claustrophobic kind of feeling, I think, that a lot of people feel using these services. And so there's people who want to escape. There's absolutely people who come on for reasons of censorship. There's people who come on because they like just the idea of the tech, you know, the fact that everything is open source, the fact that people have more control. You know, that's really no, I don't want to make it a political thing. I mean, that's something that everyone feels. The fact that like we don't want there to be these like massive power differentials, right? And so there have become these very large power differentials between us as users and what the tech companies can do. And even if you're not directly impacted by that, I think people feel that there's reasons of privacy. You know, people don't like being spied on and having everything tracked and all of this. And people also just feel like exploited. You know, that they build up this whole thing. They build up all of their following, and then they get taken advantage of. And so there's a really long list of reasons that people are coming over.
Like one of the things I was looking at while I was writing my book, which I should plug, Brexit, the Establishment Civil War, folks, link in the description below, all about how social media is destroying everything. It's lots of fun.
Yeah, but it is. Yeah, it is.
One of the things that I was kind of looking at when I was researching it was the way that our social media and the way the internet kind of evolved as away from sort of for like a pay to play model and towards like an advertising model. Do you see this like way that you're using the tokens as a way in which we can move away from that kind of ad-based personal data hoovering up style of social media that became dominant over the past 10 years?
Move away, but not eliminate. The truth is that, and this is something our thought process is always basically to give people choices, right? And so when you watch an ad on YouTube, say you have to watch that 30-second ad before you get to see the video, that may make something like anywhere from like half a penny to 2 cents, you know, something like that is effectively, you know, it's usually quoted in CPM, but I like to actually think of it as on an individual basis. That's what that ad is actually worth. And so I think that users should ultimately have choices. It shouldn't have to be that you pay $10 a month and you can only get a monthly package, to not see ads. If the cost of that ad, if the creator wants to make 2 cents a view, give the user a choice. Hey, do you want to watch enough ads that the creator makes 2 cents, or do you want to click this button and just give the creator 2 cents? And so I think the answer is to give choices. I have researched this, and I think that a lot of people will still just prefer to watch the ads. So I don't think that advertising will go away, but I think that the answer is to give people choices. And for people who do care about their information, who also are just people who value their time. Like whenever I do the math, I'm like, my time's worth a lot more than 2 cents for to watch this 30-second ad. So I think the answer is to give people choice, and choice is generally just a fundamental principle. At our company, we don't see it as our job to be that authority figure. We see it as our job to enable the choices of the users and the publishers.
Do you have any content moderation policies?
We do. We have. So this is where it's important to differentiate between the LBRY network and Odysee.com. So Odysee.com is intended to be something that can support advertisements. It's intended to be something that can be in the app stores and all of these things. And it's intended to be something that people would be happy with the policies of. And most people don't want truly anything goes. That's not what most people want. And so Odysee is designed to serve that. The policies are, and they're public. They are, I think, much better than YouTube's, where you're not going to have all this content getting deleted that really shouldn't be. But we are going to delete, someone encouraging violence or these kinds of things, or really, sorry, not delete, filter. Because Odysee is an app on top of the LBRY network. So it won't show up in results, and you're not going to see that it's there. But we don't control the LBRY network itself. That's a decentralized network that we don't own or control. And so ultimately, how people choose to use it in the decentralized clients will be up to them, how they want to use it. Similar that, and again, that's no different than email or other things. If you want to run, there's no censorship layer for the email network. There's no fundamental censorship layer for the World Wide Web. So LBRY is not really that different in that regard.
One of the things that characterized the kind of early internet, at least, was the fact it was so decentralized. And it feels to me, at least anyway, that a lot of the issues that we've seen with social media have come as a result of the centralization of the internet into, even me who considers himself to look at a lot of stuff. I would say a good 50% of my browsing begins with YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, Odysee now. Since I'm on there, I'm trying to watch the videos there instead because it feels better. I feel like I'm not giving my money to a big faceless corporation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether that's actually helping, but every little bit is good. But do you see that sort of reversing that trend of centralization over the next 5 to 10 years? Do you think we've seen peak monopoly for people like Google and Facebook? And
yes. Well, let me first say that it really does help. All right, we got to 20 million users in a month with no advertising budget. Whoa. And that's because people like what we've built, and people tell their friends to use it, or they do podcasts and they talk about it, And so this is entirely a word of mouth type success. And so, yes, every single when you make that choice to switch, you are absolutely helping. So I do really want to emphasize that. But yes, I do think these kinds of blockchain-based decentralized apps are the future in a lot of ways. They're sometimes called Web3 apps. So the idea being that Web 1 was the sort of static but decentralized web. Web 2 was the centralized but dynamic web. And so there was a lot to like about Web 2, what they can do with the algorithms and the interoperability and the standardized experience and all this stuff. There's a lot of good. There's a reason that the Web 2 sites are so popular. And Web 3 is kind of saying, let's get the best of both. Let's get the user experience and the algorithms and the interoperability of Web 2, but let's have the decentralization and the personal control and the lack of power differentials of Web 1. And that's what Web3 is really trying to do, is get the best of both. And LBRY is, I think, the most used Web3 app in the world, actually.
Really? That's cool. Well, congratulations.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not like, it's tough to get the stats, but I don't know of any, Web3 or DApp type thing, decentralized app, that's putting up the user numbers that we're putting up.
I mean, I'd say well, yeah, I don't think there is. I mean, yeah, you could. I don't know if you consider Reddit Web3, given that it's sort of vaguely decentralized.
No,
but not really.
Reddit's Web2. I mean, they have been. I mean, I think Reddit used to be one of my favorite sites a decade ago, and I think they've fallen quite a bit. I mean, if you look at the attitude that sort of like Aaron Swartz had towards personal choice and freedom of information, and now Reddit, there's a lot of things that you can't question or talk about on Reddit, or you're going to get banned.
Yeah, I think I think part of the problem is that it's people that do a lot of the regulating on Reddit, and people are wonderful, magical, brilliant, awful people.
I think actually that is just a big part of it, is that there's people have to have to say, I want to be a moderator, like I want to scrub things from the internet. You have to have a certain kind of mindset in the first place. And I'm not saying that moderation isn't necessary. Moderation makes our user experience better in a lot of regards. But I think there's been this selection effect for certain types of people to work at these companies. And that sort of explains why they're making some of these consistent choices that could tend to consistently be biased in the same directions.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I see people just demanding people be removed, or things being scrubbed from comments deleted, posts deleted, videos deleted, I'm always like, there's this small thing in the back of my head that goes, you do realize this is like the modern book burning. Like and that might sound like hyperbolic and a little bit like, I don't know, over the top, but that's pretty much what it is. And like, the people burning the books are never the good guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be like, I'm really not a conspiracy type person, and I don't want to sound too shrill, but I think that what's been going on has been really disturbing. We've had in the US, we've had the New York Times, saying that people shouldn't be allowed to have unfettered communications, that podcasts and Google Reader are dangerous technologies because they're not moderated. And there's been this like fusion between large US companies, the quote mainstream or corporate press, and certain aspects of the government. And it's, to me, extremely disturbing. It feels dystopian, and it feels like something that we should all be alarmed by. Like, journalists should not be calling for censorship. That is weird.
I spoke to this woman who's the editor of like a small, growing independent like news site, who produce their own like monthly magazine. They're doing some really cool investigative work. And I was like, how do you feel about like the censorship that's going on, the sort of slow creep of people being removed, or things that you're not allowed to say being, expanded? And she was like, she didn't have any comment on it. And she was just like, yeah, we need to remove dangerous misinformation. That was her only real response. And I was like, surely you should be more concerned about this. Like, you're the person they're going to come after.
Yeah. And that's what's been so strange to me, is that it's been the people that you would think would typically be the leading voices against it have now become cheerleaders for it.
Yeah, it's concerning. I mean, like the thing that I always try and like keep in my mind is that I'm constantly trying to figure out how much of it is like a sinister like plan, and then how much of it is like arrogant, wealthy people who go around with the idea that they know what's better for your life than you do. Yeah, and I think that's probably a part of it as well.
A lot of people do disagree with me and think that it is a more sinister plan, and they say like, Jeremy, you're naive or whatever. I actually tend to be more, I think, with you, in that I don't think that much of it is like this truly sinister plan. I think that it's very easy for human beings to like, being inconsistent, depending on whether, most human beings aren't actually that principled. Like we have a principle when the principle benefits the outcome that we want, and then the principle disappears when it's not something that we want. I can't do it off of my head, but there's like that Dune quote. Do you know that Dune quote? It's like, I ask for freedom when it's accordance with your principles, and I like deny it to you because when it's in accordance with mine, or something like this. It's this idea being that, the principles flip. It's a great quote. I wish I should get it correct. It's definitely not, I butchered it, but it's very true that we flip, in terms of whether we have these quote principles. And so I think what we're seeing is that a lot of these people who, cared about, freedom of the press or freedom of information or these things, they really were doing it not because they believed in them in some sort of absolute principle, but they were crying for them because they were the underdog. And now that they're the overdog, they have abandoned their principles.
Yeah, I guess that often happens. So do you want to, like, two more quick sort of easy questions for you before we finish up here? What are like 3 creators that you have either discovered or rediscovered as a result of Odysee?
I really like this creator, JReg. He has these really funny political videos. I like this creator, Just Thinking Out Loud, and she's very thoughtful and makes these really interesting videos. And then there's another creator named Emmy Hucker, who has become, I think she's bigger on Odysee now than on LBRY. And she also just makes these really funny videos that give me insights into a different part of the world.
Okay, that's cool. I will check those out and stick them in the description for anyone listening. So then do you want to just tell people how they can find LBRY, what they can do to help you guys out, and what they can do to, fight back against the SEC?
The number one thing to do is just to use it. So go to odysee.com, create an account, create a channel, follow the gist, follow other creators that you like. And that's the number one thing you can do, is just to start using it. If you want to do more than that, we do have a petition about our case with the SEC. We also have a whole website so you can learn more about it. It's at helplbrysavecrypto.com. If your audience is mostly in Europe, they're actually safe. This is much more about cryptocurrency in the US than the future of the technology or anything else. But we do appreciate it if people sign that petition. And those are really the 2 things to do.
Fantastic. Well, Jeremy, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks. It was great to be on.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, or sign up to our mailing list. Thanks a lot to our sponsor, ExpressVPN, the #1 most trusted VPN. Get lightning fast connectivity with servers in 160 locations across 94 countries. Keep your browsing privacy safe with ExpressVPN and get a 35% discount on 12 months of ExpressVPN when you follow the link in the description below. Don't forget, my book is now out and available to order on Amazon and on bookshop.org. That's Brexit, the Establishment Civil War. And most importantly, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.